What's up, Flannelverse? We are back for the final game of week 3. Should be a fun one. We've got the Ravens, the Lions playing in Baltimore against the Ravens. So two pretty fun offenses here. I think we could see some fireworks in this game. I am going to admit right away, I don't know exactly how I'm going to play this slate because I think there are so many ways this game could go. I have some thoughts, but I have some low-owned plays that I like that I think are going under-owned, but I don't have any like super strong leans like I did last night where I really like the running backs. There are always some games that I have a really good feel for that I feel really good about certain angles. This one, there are players that I think are low owned, but from like a game script perspective, I don't know. Maybe you guys can help me out with coming up with how this game is going to play out, because I look at these two teams and I see two offenses that could just go a lot of different ways. Really strong running backs, really strong passing games. There's just so many ways I think this game could go. So I'm probably going to lean more into what the Sims are giving me. Again, there are some low owned plays that I'll probably lean into a little bit. But in general, man, this is a tough one because I just could see this game playing out so many different ways. Would love to hear your thoughts. But while you're coming, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. We're getting up there. We're over 5,100. Just got to 5,000 yesterday or 2 days ago. So that was pretty fun getting to 5,100. Still trying to get to 6,000 by the end of the NFL season and could use your support there. Also, reminder, if you want to try out Run the Sims, you can use promo code Neil to get 10% off your first payment. I didn't do a demo today on how I'm using it, but I'm going to be, of course, demoing at the end of the show. I'm going to be making my lineups right here on this stream. Anything else? I like Laporta. He's a player that I really like, and I think he's a fun captain because you can play Laporta at captain, and it allows you to do a lot with your lineups. I do have some thoughts on individual players, just not like a full game build. Which, sometimes that can work out just fine. Devin turned $80 into $490 last night's showdown. Yeah, I made $300 or something. It was a fun one. I was super close to a big takedown last night in the main contest where I played 10 lineups, needed Pacheco instead of Hunt at the end there. That was pretty painful. But also, if Hunt had done just a little bit more, I could have taken down the mini max with a solo lineup that ended up getting 8th place, and was not actually played in the main contest either. That one, man. Anyway, didn't quite get there. Made a few $100. We'll take profit, but that was it was painful to not quite get there. Who Hames? What a guy! Just gifted a membership. Love to see it. Appreciate you, Who Hames. Okay. We're going to get into it. Again, we're going position by position here, starting with quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, defenses, kickers. At the end, I'll be making my lineups with Run the Sims. I'll take any questions you guys have, but we can get right into it. So, Jared Goff, and it looks like the ownership has not really changed since this morning, at least as far as Jared Goff goes. 45% flex ownership, 7% captain ownership going to Jared Goff. I suspect, because there are so many strong plays on this slate, I suspect I come in a little bit underweight on Jared Goff. It's a road game, kind of tough from that perspective. Doesn't run at all. So if you play him, you kind of need to be stacking him. I don't think I'm going to be like drastically underweight on Jared Goff. I do think that he is obviously a strong option, but I do suspect I'm going to be coming in a little bit underweight on Jared Goff. If you do play him, I would be playing him always stacked up. So if you play him in the flex, I always want him stacked up with at least one pass catcher. If you play him in the captain spot, I want him stacked up with at least 2 pass catchers. That being because anytime there is a passing play, the thrower of the ball, typically the quarterback, gets outscored by the catcher of the ball. They get a point per reception. They get more points per yard, more points per touchdown, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have the quarterback throwing it too much to one player, then that player is likely to outscore the quarterback, and then they're going to be the optimal captain. So you need them to be spreading the ball out, and of course you need them to be scoring a lot of points. So you generally are going to bring along multiple pass catchers if you have a non-rushing quarterback at captain. Brandon Baker, love to see it. Another gifted membership to the YouTube channel. This is probably a good time to let you guys know. I've kind of teased it a little bit in some of the shows I've done. I am going to be doing a giveaway we got to 5,000 subscribers on Sunday. Very excited about that. And I'll be doing a hat giveaway. I think what I'm going to do is on Thursday night, so on the stream right before the game, Thursday night football, I will be doing exactly what these guys are doing. I'm going to gift 10 memberships to the Flannelverse YouTube channel. And then I'm going to follow that up with of the members, I'm going to give away 5 hats. So I'm going to do a giveaway of 10 memberships to the channel, and then of the people who are then members of the channel. So I want to include the people who are already paying for it as well. I'm also going to give away some hats to those members. So we will be doing a little bit of a hat giveaway. So make sure you are here on YouTube, not watching on Twitter, but on YouTube for the Thursday Night Football show. All right. That's all I got to say about Jared Goff. Lamar Jackson. I mean, we know what Lamar Jackson is. He is one of the best fantasy performers in the NFL, projected for 51% flex ownership, 26% captain ownership. I have not run the Sims yet. Sounded like Adam on the show this morning was actually coming in a bit underweight on Lamar, particularly at captain, which would scare me a little bit. That's one thing that I don't want to be too low on Lamar. But if I come in a little bit underweight, I guess I would be okay with that, because we do have so many strong options on this slate. But he's an obviously fantastic option. I would, if I'm making adjustments, I would definitely sacrifice Goff before I sacrifice Lamar, just because he can score in so many ways. And obviously, because he is a great rushing quarterback, just under 60 yards rushing per game for his career. You can play him anywhere in your lineup unstacked. He's capable of a 100-yard rushing game with a touchdown, and doesn't really need to bring along too many pass catchers to be the optimal captain. So even in the captain spot, I don't think you need to be stacking up Lamar. But I typically, if I have my captain, I will be stacking him up. And I will note that once again, often I think rushing quarterbacks with multiple pass catchers in the flex goes a little bit underutilized. So even though I won't be requiring it, I do like the idea of playing Lamar at captain with multiple pass catchers in the flex, because I think the field is going to do it less than they probably should. So although I'm not going to require it, it is something that I would like to see in some of my lineups. Dropping dimes. It's difficult from a build perspective. I agree, because I think a lot of people are going to play it out in a lot of different ways. I do think that there are a lot of individual players that I like. So I think generally my only approach is going to be making sure that I'm overweight on some of the players that are under-owned. And we'll talk about some of those as we get there. But yeah, this is honestly a tough slate for me. Okay. Let's move on to running backs. Take a sip of my beer. Drinking a Smithwick's tonight. Big fan of Smithwick's. Strong running backs. I actually like all 4 of the primary running backs quite a bit here. We did get the news, by the way, that Keaton Mitchell is inactive as expected. So really, I think we only have to worry about 4 running backs. I believe Craig Reynolds is also inactive, but not really somebody we're considering anyway. Maybe I'll need to refresh here, but I'll start talking about. So we've got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, who again, I feel like you don't really. These teams are. We know the players so well on these teams. It's a little bit not that interesting to talk about. But we have Jahmyr Gibbs coming in at 29% flex ownership, 8% captain ownership. David Montgomery here, they haven't projected for 17% flex ownership and 1% captain ownership. I'd be pretty surprised if it comes in this low. Maybe not. I guess we have enough mid-range options that he might not come in lower than this, but I like both of these quite a bit. I love David Montgomery at these ownership numbers at 6,200. That really stands out as just a fantastic play. And Gibbs, 29 and 8. I would like to be overweight to 37% total ownership going to Gibbs. It's a tough slate from the perspective of, again, we just have so many really strong options to pay up for that you can't really, get above weight on all of them. And I don't think, I think I would certainly want to be above weight on David Montgomery. If I come in, double this ownership on Jahmyr Gibbs, I would be fine with that. But I don't know that I'm going to be forcing it. I think that he is approximately as good of a play as Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think I prefer Amon-Ra St. Brown a bit to Jahmyr Gibbs. And then, of course, we have Zay Flowers on the other side, and then you've got Lamar and Goff. So ultimately, I think I'm going to be, certainly I would want to make sure that I'm overweight on David Montgomery. Gibbs, I think I'd be fine just being right with the field here at about 37% total ownership. We can take a look at their roles so far on the season. Gibbs, and you can see the expected fantasy points, actually not all that different for them on the season. Gibbs at 30.2 expected fantasy points for the season, Montgomery at 25.1. Montgomery has one more carry than Gibbs, 22-21 through 2 games. But then Gibbs is leading by quite a bit in terms of the targets, 13 targets to 5 on 57% route participation to 25% route participation. So the roles are kind of what they have always been, where they're splitting the carries, and then Montgomery's a little bit involved in the passing game, but Gibbs is very involved in the passing game. I think in a tough matchup, it does make me like Gibbs a little bit more, because I think he's just more likely to be needed in the passing game more in a tough matchup. But he's also a lot more expensive. Got to factor in ownership. Ultimately, I like David Montgomery. Like he's a pretty big priority for me if this is the ownership number. Gibbs, I think the ownership is just totally fine there. Not anything that I want to get too different from. Yeah, Montgomery at RG coming in at, and actually let me reset this. He was coming in a little bit higher ownership at RG earlier. Just going to refresh. I like to double check these things just to make sure that it's not like completely off. Yeah, they've got him at 25.5%, which I still think is a number that I probably want to be above weight to. It's just not as drastic. And then, yeah, I think those are the only. Valky's not playing. I think Reynolds is inactive. Wouldn't be playing him anyway. So it's really just Gibbs and Montgomery on the Lions side. And then on the Ravens side, always an interesting one with Derrick Henry and Justice Hill. Really the only 2 running backs we have to consider here. Henry coming in at 30% flex ownership, 14% captain ownership. Justice Hill coming in at 31% flex ownership, 1% captain ownership. Interesting to see that Hill is coming in this highly owned, more than Henry in the flex. I really like Hill quite a bit. If he comes in at 31%, that's obviously a little bit less appealing than you can often get him as a fairly contrarian play. RG has him at 18%. I think when I build my lineups, I'm going to give him a little bit lower than 30%, because that seems, I'd be surprised if it's that high, because we have enough pretty good mid-range and cheap options that I don't think that he's going to get to 30%. So that is something that I will change a bit on Justice Hill. But he's always, we can look at their, let's see, fantasy points scored from 2024. Yeah, just I like to pull up and just kind of show you what the distributions look like for the running backs and the quarterbacks. I think the Ravens in particular, this is always interesting to look at. Like, can you play them together? Actually, we might want to look at this for the Lions also. But just to kind of see how often do Henry and Hill hit together, and how often do they each hit individually, and then also with the quarterbacks. Justice Hill last year 5 times hit double-digit fantasy points. He did. There was one game, week 4, where they both, Hill and Henry, went off in a big way. Obviously, they're probably going to go under-owned together. You would love to get a game like this. Most of the time, though, kind of negatively correlated. They did have a few hits together, so again, that one stands out. Is that the only one? I thought there was at least one more where they both did pretty well together. Oh, this one, week 7, 13.8 for Hill, 25.2 for Henry. You would certainly want both of them in that game. Also, probably in the flex for that one. Whereas in week 4, you would have wanted Henry in the captain spot, Hill in the flex, or maybe even vice versa, depending on the rest of the scoring in that game. But generally kind of negatively correlated between Hill and Henry, and not as positively correlated between Hill and Lamar Jackson as I might have expected, just because most of his involvement is in the passing game. But they, in week 4, 24.6 for Lamar, 21.6 for Hill. Good. You probably want both of them at those scores, but not necessarily with Lamar, because he's so expensive. Similarly, week 12, like, you might want Lamar with that 14.2 from Justice Hill, but not necessarily. Week 15, you certainly want both Lamar Jackson and Justice Hill. 37.1 for Lamar, 17.8 for Hill. But then you also see that it's not as negatively correlated as you might expect for Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. You see several games, week 3, 26 for Lamar, 30.4 for Derrick Henry. Week 4, 24.6 for Lamar, 35.9 for Henry. Plenty of games, if you look here, where you would definitely want both of them in your lineup. So I would not shy away from playing them together. And actually, I'm going to look real quick at the Lions. Gibbs and Montgomery, how often did they hit together? I mean, look at how even their scores were a lot of the time. 17.4 for Gibbs, 16.3 for Montgomery, 17.6 for Gibbs, 17 for Montgomery, 16.3, 21.2. They just, man, they're often pretty close. And then we did see a little bit of separation in week 7. We started to see more of just the Gibbs show, 32-20 for Gibbs, 9 and 15 for Montgomery. Week 11, we see a little bit closer there. Anyway, you can see that they can both hit in the same game. What's happening less later in the year than it was early in the season. But actually, I guess early in the season, these probably are not scores you would want from Gibbs. You might not want him in your lineup with, given how many high scores there are in this game. So we actually probably didn't have that many games last year. Just looking at this game log, if we set a minimum for like 20 from Gibbs at his price tag, you wouldn't have wanted Montgomery in this one. Maybe in this one where Montgomery gets 14.9, but Gibbs only got just 20.3. Yeah, honestly, not that many games where you would have wanted both of their scores. Week 12, 24.9 for Gibbs, 16.3 for Montgomery. Maybe you want that at 6,200 for Montgomery. You probably want them both in that case. But yeah, most of the time it was they were a little bit negatively correlated last year. Something to note there. I do think you can play them both together. I think they both get enough involvement. It's not a spot where I'm like, I really like playing them together. Like, last night I really liked the idea of playing both Chiefs running backs together. I thought that was a fun way to attack the game, an angle that I really liked. I wouldn't say that it's an angle that I love here, but I think that they are viable to play together. And I'd say the same thing for the Ravens. Both sides I think are viable, but not like priorities to play together. But again, Hill, if he comes in at 18% ownership, I'm going to really like him. If he does come in at 30+% ownership, I don't like that quite as much. I would anticipate that he's going to actually come in lower than this number. So I do like Hill today. And Henry, obviously one of the better captain plays on the slate. He can always put up a huge score. Okay. Easy, you have made the wrong choice here. You should never be choosing me over Dua Lipa. It's just that's a bad choice. So apologies in advance. Okay. I think that's it for the running backs. Let's move on, talk about the wide receivers. A lot of people expecting really high scoring games. I'm seeing some predictions in chat. All right. Let's move on to wide receivers. So on the Lions, we have obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Isaac TeSlaa, and Khalif Raymond are the 4 options that I think are all pretty strong in different ways. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, 10,400, 35% projected flex ownership, not predicted, different thing. 35% projected flex ownership, 13% captain ownership for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Looks great. I don't think I need to tell you why to play Amon-Ra St. Brown. We see the numbers, and actually I've split things up here. So one thing that I didn't note, and I'll start by just looking at the raw numbers here. So Amon-Ra through 2 games, 16 targets on 91.7% raw participation. Pretty great usage so far for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Again, 16 targets, actually fewer than Zay Flowers, which obviously not what you would anticipate for a full season. But I think those numbers probably come up and already, pretty strong usage for Amon-Ra St. Brown. He had what did he score? 4 touchdowns in one game, at least 3 in one game against the Bears. Obviously having a great season. And I think you can expect that to continue. This is a guy that we took in the first round of fantasy drafts, really strong fantasy contributor, particularly in full PPR. Looks great. Then you've got JMO coming in at 25% flex ownership, 3% captain ownership. I like those numbers for JMO. I particularly like the captain ownership number. Certainly want to get above 3% captain. Williams, I think that he could start spiking in big ways. He honestly has not had a ton of really huge spike weeks so far in his career. I think people think of him as having like 40-point games, and I don't think he's ever reached 30 fantasy points in a game, but I think he's certainly capable of doing so. I think it'll happen at some point, could happen today. So I like the idea of getting overweight on 3% at captain. One thing that Adam and I did not look at earlier that I was just kind of looking at before we started is just looking at how the teams cover this year. And both teams are in the top 5 in terms of percentage of time they play man defense. So Detroit plays 39.7%, Baltimore 37.9%, both in the top 5 so far for the year. So I'll look at the how the receivers have done against man defense last year, and I'll pull up the Lions first. Khalif Raymond did really well against man defense last year, 3.37 yards per route run, really high separation score. JMO 2.81 yards per route run against man, and you kind of want to compare to their overall yards per route run. So Khalif Raymond 1.84 overall, 3.37 against man. So this might be a good matchup for Khalif Raymond. Similarly, JMO 2.26 up to 2.81 against man. Jahmyr Gibbs had a strong yards per route run, 2.75 against man. Sam Laporta 2.55. Several. Now I think generally most players are going to be a little bit higher against man coverage, I believe. Amon-Ra actually a little bit lower against man coverage last year, but just something to kind of take note of. They're only playing it 40% of the time. It's not like they're always playing man defense, but maybe an angle you could play to make you like a Khalif Raymond or a JMO a little bit better. So far this year, not quite the same thing. Amon-Ra has actually been better against man defense in the 2 games they've played so far. JMO not quite as good this year. So make of it what you will. But it does overall, I would say, because JMO was so much better against man defense last year, maybe one more reason to like him, but certainly Khalif Raymond, another reason to like him. But these are kind of micro points, reasonings to play them. I think the better thing to look at is, so I like Amon-Ra just fine at 35-13. JMO 25-3. I want to be above weight at captain, not necessarily in the flex. But then we have Isaac TeSlaa and Khalif Raymond. I wouldn't set a rule to not play them together. But if I were hand building, I would probably be disinclined to do it too often. Like it's something that I do think that they're going to be negatively correlated. I think you can play them together again. They could both run 40% of the routes and both hit in the same game, particularly at these price tags. But I do think like if you are going to get a ceiling game from TeSlaa or Raymond, it probably comes at the expense of the other. And we can look at their route participation so far on the year. In week 1, it was Raymond ran 74.4% of the routes, and TeSlaa just 7% of the routes. Week 2, they evened out quite a bit, 37.9% for Raymond, 41.4% for TeSlaa. And that was after Dan Campbell said, like, we need to get TeSlaa more involved. He's earned more playing time, and the playing time came up quite a bit. And you can see it came directly at the expense of Khalif Raymond. So I think if TeSlaa continues to see an increase in route participation, which would not be that surprising if his goes up even more, it could come up at the expense of Khalif Raymond. Now, again, if they both hold at exactly where they were last week, around 40% route participation, they could both certainly hit at their price tags. But I think that you're going to be slightly negatively correlated. So I'd be disinclined to play them together. If I were hand building, only a few lineups, I would not play them together. In a 150 set, no issue getting some with both of them. But as noted, Khalif Raymond, this might be a better matchup for him against man coverage, a team that plays more man coverage than usual. But ultimately, again, if he stays at this level of route participation, I think Khalif Raymond is just a great play at 1% projected ownership. He's 2,000, projects a little bit worse than TeSlaa, but at that level of ownership, like they both have the odds of one of them hitting actually not super different. They both have, fairly low odds, but probably good relative to ownership. I'm a fan of both TeSlaa and Khalif Raymond, but at 1%, Khalif Raymond stands out as a fantastic low owned play, even without considering that he's did well last year against man coverage. I think he's just a great play in large field tournaments. Who, again, floor of 0 for Khalif Raymond, 20th percentile outcome is probably 0 to 1 fantasy points. But I think that there are a lot of scenarios where he hits in a way where he's good enough for 2,000 and can hit in a big way, especially at this level of ownership. So love all 4 to some extent. Again, JMO want to be over a captain. Amon-Ra probably right with the field at his ownership. I think he's a really strong play. One of my favorite captain plays. So does the field, though. Tesla, I really like, because I think that there's a world in which he continues to see his route participation increase. He's looked really, really good. And for some reason, he's only 1,200. And the ownership is not actually crazy high. I wouldn't be super surprised if it's higher than he's projected for. But this is actually higher than other sites have it, I believe. Again, I think that he's a name that people are paying attention to. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him actually come in over 20%. But I'm not that confident in that. So I'm going to trust this ownership number, and I really like him at 1,200 at this ownership number. And then Raymond, I absolutely love at 1% ownership. We could see his route participation dissipate even more, but I don't think it's a sure thing. He's been pretty good. On the other side, we've got Zay Flowers, who seems to be taking a step forward this year. In his third year, he is 8,400, probably too cheap if we continue to see him take this step forward. He has 19 targets on the year. So he's projected for 35% flex ownership, 16% captain ownership at 8,400. Again, that price tag relative to what he has done so far this year feels a little bit light. On the season, Zay Flowers, 19 targets on 89.1% route participation. I believe he came into this week as maybe the wide receiver one in fantasy. He's been very good in a great offense. Too cheap if we assume he's going to continue the leap that he's been making this year. I think he looks like a really strong play. No real pushback on 50% of the field playing him. Yeah, looks great. Rashad Bateman, 39% projected flex ownership, 3% captain ownership. Because of the ownership, so looking at the price tags on Bateman being 4,000, Hopkins being 4,800, clearly Bateman is the better point per dollar play here. He projects better at a lower price tag. I don't know that I buy the 9% ownership going to DeAndre Hopkins, which every site has him there. And it certainly could be accurate, but he does have like 2 awesome highlight reel catches already on the year. So I wouldn't be that surprised to see that number come up. We also do have some coach speak suggesting that they might start using him a little bit more. Ultimately, I think if Hopkins comes in at 9%, if you buy that, yeah, I like it. I think that is a number I'd want to get on top of. He is also 4,800. So it's still, his scoring for the past couple weeks. Actually, let's look at what his actual scores are. Pull up 2025. Wait. Well, first off, let's take a look at the route share report first. And then I'll pull up fantasy points also. So route participation, we actually saw DeAndre Hopkins drop from 50% in week 1 to 21.2% in week 2. Actual fantasy points. Up from 11.5 to 14.4. I think at 4,800, honestly, I'm not that confident that you would even want this 14.4, and that's with a touchdown. So yeah, at 9%, it looks like a pretty good play. Because he's live for a little bit more. The coach speak suggests that he could be a little bit more involved going forward. Maybe I should read off the quote. But I think he could get a little bit more involved. They've been saying like they're going to start using DeAndre Hopkins a little bit more. There's actually a couple quotes over the past few days. So the first one was from Jim Harbaugh on the 15th. So a week ago, he said on whether Harbaugh foresees DeAndre Hopkins getting more playing time. He said, I think we'll see as we go. Some games might be one way or another. We have a lot of guys that can play and do different things. So it's not a bad thing to do it that way. The more DeAndre is on the field, I'm happy about that. But if we don't have to have him out there too much doing things that aren't difference making things, that kind of makes sense as well. So I don't think they're ever going to give him like 80% route participation because they're trying to preserve him, but also it sounds like they're using him, in situations where he's more likely to score fantasy points. And then on the 19th, offensive coordinator Todd Monken said, we're going to continue to get DeAndre Hopkins up to speed. I think his packages are going to continue to grow moving forward. We have to have that be the case because he's a tremendous football player. And the more we can get him on the field, the better we're going to be moving forward. So I don't know that it doesn't seem that promising to look at his, he scored touchdowns both games and he's maxed out at 14.8 fantasy points. So it's his price tag of 4,800. It's a little bit tough for him to get there, but if he does, come up to 60% route participation or something, he would look good. Ultimately, honestly, I don't think that I need to be overweight on 9% D hop. I think that's just a totally fine number. And Bateman, I suspect I'm actually going to come in around the field. I'm trying to think what my stance would be on this. 39% seems higher than I would expect for Bateman. RG has him at 27%. At 27%, I really like him because I think he's cheap enough, and his workload has actually been pretty strong. 74.5% route participation, just 7 targets on the year, but he had kind of a breakout year last year where we saw him have some big games. Actually, I kind of want to look at his fantasy points from last year. So he's done 3 and 3.5 fantasy points so far this year in 2 games for Bateman. Yeah, he actually didn't have that many really big spike weeks, at least not later on. I guess he had more, but he had for 4,000. Which of these would you want? You probably 15.8 is the first one you actually like at his price tag. 22.1 in week 7, 17.4 in week 10, 23 in week 15, 18.6 in week 18. So he actually had a number of games that you would want at his $4,000 price tag. The expectations coming in this year were kind of like last year. There was a lot of hype around Rashad Bateman about he's going to take a big leap forward. And we kind of saw it last year. So I'm still hopeful that he could take a big step forward. This 39% is a number that's like, I don't totally love it, but yeah. No, I think I'm coming around to it. I think Bateman is one that I probably want to be overweight on the field too. It's tough because I see the 9% on Hopkins and I'm intrigued by it, but I think ultimately Bateman just is likelier to put up a score that you really want at 4,000 than Hopkins. So even with the ownership discrepancy, I actually think I might prefer Bateman to Hopkins. I don't know if it's enough that I need to get overweight to the field there because we have a lot of strong mid-range options. But I think it's kind of fair ownership, 39%, 3% on Bateman. Then we have Tylan Wallace and Devontae Walker. I don't think we really need to chase Devontae Walker that much. He's getting 1% projected ownership here, 3% at RG. I think that's, fine. I don't need to get above weight on that number. I am aware that he scored 2 touchdowns last week. I think that was just an outlier. We're not going to expect that much. He did not play all that much. 15.2% route participation on the year, only has 2 targets, scored touchdowns with both of them. I'm not really expecting that to continue for Tez Walker. And if he just scores 1 touchdown, honestly, you might not even need it at 1,600. So 1% ownership, 1 to 3% seems totally fine. That's probably about where I want to be. Tylan Wallace, actually pretty intriguing to me. He's 3,000, not projected for any ownership. 4% at RG. That's probably more. I bet it's somewhere in between there. And I think I want to be, 5 to 10% Tylan Wallace. I think that he actually has a bit of upside here after looking at his route participation, how it moved up from 4.5% in week 1 to 45.5% in week 2. Adam and I took a look at that, and it was like starting in the first quarter of that game, he was 50% route participation, I believe, in the first quarter. Like it was not just a garbage time thing with Tylan Wallace. They were using him quite a bit. So at 3,000, we saw it last year. There was a showdown slate where I completely did not play any of Tylan Wallace because he had not been running any kind of routes, and then he came out and just absolutely crushed with a few splash plays. So we know that he's capable of it. So I think Tylan Wallace at like 0 ownership, I would like to get to 5 to 10% Tylan Wallace. Again, the floor is going to be 0, but we've seen the major upside there, and kind of promising to see the route participation jump as much as it did last week for Tylan Wallace and early in the game. All right, I think that's it for the receivers. Let's move on to tight ends. Check in on chat. How much salary left on the table is too much in a showdown? So somebody asked me last night, is $10,000 too much to leave on the table? And I said probably for that game. And I believe the optimal lineup last night left 11,000 on the table. I don't think I would do that tonight, though. I think they're last night was a strange game, and still the winning lineup didn't leave that much. It was just the optimal was actually did a lot better than the winning lineups. You did not need the optimal last night. Tonight, I would not leave that much on the table. We'll see when I run the Sims how much I'm getting. I'm guessing tonight is one where probably leaving more than 3,000 is likely a mistake. Maybe 4,000. I don't know. But most of my lineups are, I don't think, going to leave that much salary on the table because I think we have really strong pay up options on this slate. We have really strong mid range options. We could see scenarios where Sam Laporta outscores JMO, and that's you're saving salary there. But I think that there's enough like options throughout the price ranges that I would be kind of surprised if this is a slate where a ton of salary is left on the table. I think it worked out yesterday because Malik Neighbors completely missed, Russell Wilson completely missed. Like most of the pay up options did nothing, and the players you wanted were Tyquan Thornton and the Chiefs defense and Kareem Hunt, and they were just all really cheap. That's not going to happen all that often, and I'd be surprised to see it in this game in particular because there are so many strong pay up options that could score a lot of fantasy points, and like it'd be pretty surprising to see Lamar Jackson fail in a way where lots of lower price players outscore him. So I probably won't be leaving a ton on this one, but it depends a lot on the particular slate. Sam Laporta, one of my favorite plays on the slate. He is getting a lot of ownership, as you can see here. He's 5,400 projected for 41% flex ownership, 3% captain ownership. So I don't love to see that. I am not the only one on Sam Laporta. RotoGrinders has him at 27%. So, the first piece of content I do every day is using the RotoGrinders numbers. So I come in with opinions based on their numbers. And then I hate to see that Run the Sims is always closer to like, oh, this is about how much I want of him. But I suspect he'll come in somewhere between these numbers. 27%, I would certainly want to be way above weight to Laporta. I like him at captain quite a bit. I think he's a player that could hit in a big way. And you look at just this is fantasy points allowed, just raw fantasy points allowed through 2 weeks to tight ends in PPR scoring. The Ravens have given up the second most. That is against the Browns, where they had the game where Harold Fannin scored a lot and Njoku scored a little bit as well. So this is obviously skewed by the opponents they've played. They played the Browns with 2 strong tight ends, and then they played Dalton Kincaid had a good game against them. So I think it is partially like Dalton Kincaid has failed in other matchups. I think this year, maybe I can't remember how I did. Anyway, I think that this is so far it's been a pretty strong matchup for tight ends. That's a very small sample size. Don't put too much stock into it, but so far has not been a bad matchup. Laporta pretty involved. Pull it up. 79.2% route participation, 13 targets already on the year, which is second on the team. And he's just fairly cheap. So I like Laporta quite a bit here. Again, I like him better, obviously, at 27% ownership than 41%. But I think he's a strong flex play. He's a strong captain play. I think I would like to be overweight to Laporta. I might move his ownership number down later when I run the Sims because I want to get to more. Brock Wright is fine, but just kind of the classic backup tight end. I don't think I'm going to get a lot because he's 2,400, kind of expensive. You probably need a touchdown for Brock Wright to pay off. Not a priority for me by any means. And then you have Mark Andrews and Charlie Kolar. Again, I like them both quite a bit. Mark Andrews, 4,400, has not done anything this year. He's been targeted just 4 times through 2 games. And then Charlie Kolar has not been targeted yet. But again, 4 targets on 70.9% route participation for Mark Andrews. And then Charlie Kolar, 0 targets, but he does have 40% route participation. I think both are honestly very strong options. Charlie Kolar is only $600. At some point, if you're running 40% of the routes, you're probably going to get targeted. And at 600, you don't really need much from Charlie Kolar. If he scores a touchdown, you probably do want him. I think that he is one of the best plays under 1,000. I'd have to think if there's anybody that's better there. But yeah, I think he's a really strong option at 600. And Mark Andrews at 4,400. Just the price is low enough. And we haven't really seen much, so I'd be kind of surprised if the ownership comes in any higher than he's being projected. So I like Mark Andrews a bit. 40% ownership, I don't know that I need to be above weight to that. Again, RG has the number lower. But Charlie Kolar, really strong contrarian option who is also inexpensive. That's it for tight ends. Jeremy, no. Jerry, I believe we have 45 minutes left, right? And if we don't, then I'm screwed. But I think we start at 8:15 Eastern, 7:15 Central. All right, defenses and kickers. Yeah, 40 now. Okay. Jake Bates projected for 12% ownership, 0 at captain. Lions 3% ownership, 0 at captain. Tyler Loop 25% ownership, 1 at captain. Ravens 10 and 1. Again, I think these numbers are a little bit different here. At RG, they have it as where is it? Lions defense at 14%. So I don't think that's all that different. And then Ravens at 11%. Then they have Tyler Loop at 21%, Jake Bates at 15%. What stands out to me here is the kickers. Like the defenses, I think, are fine. But these are really good offenses. I'd be at 3,600 for the Lions, 4,200 for the Ravens. I think they're fine plays, not priorities, but if I get to 10% of each, I think I'm happy with that number, just like sticking right there, which is actually over the field on where Run the Sims has the Lions defense projected. They're also tougher to get to because the Ravens run a lot more, so just less likely to turn the ball over, less likely for the Lions to have big plays. So I think I'll probably come in. I guess I come in under 10% on the Lions. I'd like to get to around 10% on the Ravens, but I really like the kickers. So the kickers are what stand out to me. Not projected for a ton of ownership. Jake Bates, really strong kicking option. I think should have some opportunities here, even with the Lions being a little bit more aggressive than most teams. Jake Bates, just a really strong kicker. And with the new kickoff rules, we have seen teams attempt, a little bit more kicks on average, field goals on average. And then Tyler Loop has looked really good so far. Similarly, he's 5,000. I think I'd like to be above weight on both. I think the Sims will probably give me more than the field on both. I would say the kickers are priorities at relatively low ownership. All right. I think that's it for defenses and kickers. But again, in summary, I like the kickers. Defenses are fine. Questions and lineups. Let me know if you have any questions. I will be running some lineups now. Let me take a sip. Actually, have water. Appreciate the reminder, Dan. Yeah, please do like the video if you have not already done so. Very helpful in trying to grow the channel. Yeah, Mark Andrews. Last year it was more like explainable though. Like he was recovering from tightrope surgery and a car accident. And he had multiple injuries coming in that explained it, and then he was awesome for the second half of the year. And then this year, I don't know what explains it. I expect him to start being better. Mike, are you telling me to run the Sims, or are you answering a question? I'm going to run the Sims now. All right. Deeg says, statistically, it is way too much to leave on the table. I think talking about 10,000, 95% plus of Showdown optimals in the last 3 years have salary greater than 45,000. Focus should be on the combos of players. Yeah, I mean, I typically try to leave some salary on the table, but yeah, it's rare that I leave that much on the table. But it depends on the slate. And obviously, if you run the Sims, they're going to factor in exactly how much you should. Yes, love some Kolar. Okay. Let's run the Sims here. So for me, as much as you saw last night, I change things sometimes pretty dramatically in the inputs, but I like to run the Sims first without changing anything. I want to see what I get just using the inputs they give me, and then I'll make some adjustments after I run them. I could change the ownership numbers to closer to what I think they're going to be. That's the one thing I might consider doing in the future. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm going to start for the first one. I'm going to do 20,000 lineups. Field of 15,000 because I'm playing the largest fields. Number of Sims 10,000, and I'm going to do top heavy payout structure because the large field ones tend to be top heavy. I'm not going to change any other settings. I am going to do the shady portfolio optimizer. I am playing 226 lineups, so I'll set it for that. And then I'm just going to click the Sim Runner Pro button. And now they'll run for a few minutes. Yeah, Kolar, I mean, he's too cheap, and I think he's actually pretty good pass catching tight end, and he's running a lot of routes. how do you add rules? So you can do some filtering after you run the sims. I'll show you there. I can't show you right here, but I don't like to add a ton of rules. So like, in an optimizer, I'll say things like if I have a quarterback, I want certain quarterbacks I want to be double stacked, or like if I have him at captain, I want Jared Goff to be double stacked. In an optimizer, I set those rules. I don't do it in a sim because they do it for you essentially because they're doing play by play sims. So as a result of the play by play sims, you're going to get your players correlated how they should be. So if what I'm saying is true, which I think I've found it to be true throughout the years, that like you don't see non-rushing quarterbacks who concentrate too much on certain receivers, you don't see them optimal in the captain without bringing multiple pass catchers along with them, then the correlations from doing the play-by-play sims are going to show that, and they're not going to like the lineups that are going to do better in the sims are the ones that are going to have the quarterback multi-stacked. And in cases where it's like, well, maybe this quarterback runs in certain situations, and spreads the ball around a little bit, so maybe you don't need them to be double stacked. The sims are going to account for that too, like to the exact extent that they should. So I don't like to set a lot of rules in the sims because they are going to account for the rules that I would be setting in a way that actually is more mathematical than me just kind of using my instincts and history. Marco says I do like a running back in the MVP with the defense. Yeah, liked it last night with the Chiefs. Last night was kind of a weird one because we had the Cam Scadaboo was the optimal captain, and then we did have Chiefs with Kareem Hunt in the optimal, but kind of a different one with it was a 5-1 Chiefs was the optimal with Cam Scadaboo in the captain, which does not happen all that often. All right, we're already diversifying payouts. Look at this, getting faster. Love to see it. Watching my beer almost spill. Oh, what a perfect pour. Did not spill over at all. Okay, we're back. Top lineup is a Sam Laporta captain lineup, as is the second one. And I have again, because I'm using the Shady Portfolio Optimizer, I'm not getting these lineups in the order of the EV. If you do not use the Shady Portfolio Optimizer, you're just going to get the lineups in the order of their EV here. And then you can sort them yourself. But I love the tool. It's been pretty great so far. Top lineup is a Sam Laporta captain lineup with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Isaac Tesla, Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson, and Zay Flowers. Leaves 700 on the table. That one projected for just under 3 dupes in a field of 15,000. So it would be projected for more dupes in a larger field like the ones I'm playing. So you need to factor that in. I've thought about using the advanced filters and filtering down the number of dupes that I find okay, but in general, so the reason that I have not been filtering more is I want to let the portfolio optimizer do its thing, where it's going to give me some lineups that are like super low duped and maybe less chance that they're going to hit, but when they hit, they're going to hit bigger. And then some lineups are going to be duped more, but also going to hit more frequently. So I'm kind of letting them take care of the risk management a little bit with the Shady Portfolio Optimizer. So far I've not done anything with the filtering to try to get to fewer dupes, but it's something that maybe I would think about in the future. Once I need to pay closer attention, I think, to the number of dupes I'm actually getting, because maybe at some point I want to limit them more than I am right now. But happy with the results so far. Second lineup, also Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown. This one has David Montgomery in it, and Derrick Henry is the only player from the Ravens. And we've got Jake Bates and Jared Goff. So we've got, Goff with Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm trying to see if we have any Goff up here without stacks. And I don't think I'm seeing any, which I'm happy about. We're not getting into any like naked Goff. Again, I didn't set that rule, but because it's simulated, it sims in a way that is there's going to spit out the top lineups that make sense in the way they correlate. So these all look good. I'm going to look at my player exposures tab, and you can see it only gave me 78, 74 lineups. So now I know for my next run, I can do just 10,000 lineups, and it's going to include all of them. Maybe save a little bit of time there. Player exposures tab. Start with quarterbacks. I'm getting to 52% Lamar in the flex and 11% at captain. Happy to see that. I'm actually getting to above weight on Jared Goff, which surprises me a little bit. After I adjust things, maybe I'd be okay losing some of that, but I'm not upset to get that much. I'll go to running backs, getting to 46% Gibbs in the flex. Only 3% at captain surprises me a little bit. Actually really underweight on Derrick Henry, 24% and 3%. David Montgomery, as expected, I'm getting a lot, 46% and 9%. Justice Hill, I'm getting to 28% and 0.2, just 29% total. Interesting. I think that's because Justice Hill is projected for a lot of ownership here. David Montgomery not projected for much ownership. So I do think I'm going to make some adjustments to the ownership projections. That's the one thing that the Run the Sims team is not doing themselves. They're importing it. So I don't naturally trust it quite as much as the rest of their stuff, because I really do trust their team, but might want to adjust those ownership numbers a little bit. Zay Flowers getting to 42% and 24%. That looks good. Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I'm getting to a lot of Amon-Ra, 36% and 22% at captain. Not mad about that. 14.4% Rashad Bateman. So I think what this is showing is if he does come in at 39% ownership, that's a bit much for Rashad Bateman, which I would agree with. I think if I lower that ownership, I'll get to more. And I think I want to get to more Rashad Bateman, because I suspect he'll come in lower owned than this after, scoring 3 fantasy points per game so far in the year. JMO, surprised that I'm not getting to more JMO, given he has that low 3% projected captain ownership. So I might make an adjustment there. Getting to 24% Isaac Tesla in the flex, so a little bit overweight there. Love to see that. 10% D-Hop, kind of where I wanted to be right with the field. I'm right with the field there. Getting to 7% Khalif Raymond, which is not a ton, but it is 7x the field, with the field projected at 1%. Right with the field at about 4%, Tylan Wallace. Only getting 0.5% of Tez Walker. Generally okay with these numbers, but I think I would like to get to maybe even a little bit more of Tylan Wallace, Khalif Raymond, Isaac Tesla, and certainly JMO I want more of than this 3% at captain. But I'll make some adjustments to the ownership to start, and then I'll think about what else I might want to change. Laporta, I'm getting to 16% in the flex, 17% at captain. A little bit lighter than I would like to be. I think that's because he's projected for so much ownership. Still getting to a lot at captain because he's projected for low cap ownership. So that's interesting to see. Projected for 3% at captain, then I'm getting 17%. But I might want to bring down his flex ownership, because I think this is a lot higher than RG. You could also import ownership numbers from somewhere else if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to manually adjust a little bit. Andrews, I'm getting to 18% and 2%. I think I'd like to get a little bit more there of Andrews. 15.5% for Charlie Kolar, so well above the field. Looks good. Not getting any Brock Wright or Zaire Mitchell-Payton. Kickers, I'm getting to 17% Tyler Loop, 24% Jake Bates. Wouldn't mind getting a little bit more there. Defenses, just 4% of the Ravens, 4% of Detroit. Also worth noting, Run the Sims, this is new today, saves each build. So as I make changes, and I have not tried this yet, but I'm going to just name this one original build. Really original stuff here. Original build is the name of the first one. And then I'm going to run some more Sims here. So I'm going to go back to the inputs. I will check in on chat, see if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns. Yeah, it's a good question from Do. And somebody brought this up earlier. I wouldn't be that surprised to see Charlie Kolar maybe see a little bit more work. Maybe get some snaps at fullback with Patrick Richard out. Yeah, I could see it. Let's see. Yeah, if Tesla has 4 and a touchdown, he would almost certainly be optimal. Yes, agreed. Let's see. Crazy lineup here. Jackson, Captain, Wallace, Walker, Hopkins, St. Brown, Gibbs. I don't mind that. I am drinking a Smithix, and it is delicious. Not sponsored, but recommended anyway. I don't think Tesla is a bad play at even 20% owned. I don't think he's like a great play at 20%, but I think he is a fine to good play at 20%. Anthony, highly recommend flash drafts. Again, if anybody's not in the Discord, join the Flat Earth Discord. There's a link in the description of this video. There is a flash draft channel where I've done a write-up on how to play it, and a lot of people have had a lot of success at it. That's probably the thing that people have benefited from the most from the written content I've done. All right, I'm going to change some things, and I'm going to run the Sims here. So let's see. I do think Montgomery comes in a little bit higher than this, so I'm going to change his flex ownership to 20%. Do I want to give JMO more target share? Maybe not. I think I'm generally happy with what I'm getting to of Amon-Ra. And maybe I'm going to bring down Goff's market share because I'm getting to a ton of Goff. I'm going to click the smart adjust, which is going to proportionally make changes. So I'm going to change his market share because he doesn't run like at all. So I could put it at 1%. I'm just going to put it at 0%. I'm already getting to a fair amount of Raymond, Tesla. How much is I getting again? Only 7% Raymond. I'm getting a fair, okay, good amount of Tesla. All right. Thinking if I need to change anything else here. I mean, I could just get rid of Brock Wright because I'm not going to play him anyway and give some of his work to Tesla, Raymond. Maybe I'll just do that. We'll see what that does. Jake Bates, I like. I'm just going to leave him as is. Was not getting to a ton of Derrick Henry. Wait, how much Justice Hill was I getting? Gotta look again. I think I want more Derrick Henry than I'm getting here. Pretty happy with that Justice Hill exposure. Oh, but he's projected for a lot of ownership. That's what I really need to look at. What are the ownership projections here? Because I think those I might disagree with some of them. Laporta, I think, is going to come in a little bit lower than this. Okay, and then wait. Okay. Man, Henry, this is be pretty scared to not have more of Henry captain than I'm getting currently. So maybe I want to bring, I'm just going to bring that number, the ownership number down a little bit. Hill, I'm also going to move his ownership number down to 25%, kind of split the difference between RG and run the Sims numbers. Bateman, I think, is going to come in lower owned than this. I'm going to put him at 32%. Andrews probably also. I'm just going to move that to 35%. Is Tyler Loop really going to get 25% ownership? I'm not sure. All right, I'm gonna try a new run just like this. I'm going to change the settings to just 10,000 lineups. All right, there we go. Good enough. 2 lineups in the main. Favorite captains, I'm going to probably just be Lamar and maybe let's go Lamar and Laporta would probably be the other one for me. Pepperoni says Mitchell Payton has gotten some goal line fullback snaps over Charlie Kolar. He hasn't gotten any carries, though, has he? Chase says the sim seems super low on King Henry. I think it's just because he's projected for a lot of ownership and not involved at all in the passing game. So I guess that probably brings down. But he's such a freak that I just it scares me because every year I fade King Henry. He's getting older. He's not involved in the passing game. All these reasons to fade him, and then he just crushes. So it's going to be too far off. Yeah, flash draft content is where it's at, Pete. It's a really fun game. It's the one that I dedicate the least thought to. Like I have done a little bit of content on it because it doesn't change that much over time. But it's like month over month. If I play flash drafts for every slate, I've been profitable over time pretty consistently, more so than other stuff like DFS. It's like some months I'll be profitable, a lot of months I lose money. That's just kind of how it goes with DFS. I should just play a lot more flash drafts. It's a lot more consistent, sustainable. I don't believe this is possible, Sean, to hand build a lineup and check it against the field. I might be wrong about that, but I'm not aware of that being something you can do. Gotta check my phone, make sure I don't miss any news or anything. Don't think I'm seeing anything. Looks like we got some new people in the Discord. Good to see you all in there. Oh, we got a fun guest for you for the All Dog Show tomorrow. All right. Brandon says I got to get into preseason DFS next year. Maybe. How many lineups would you need to play to be comfortable with a Laporta captain? Literally two lineups. I'd be fine with him in one lineup. You could use him as your captain in a solo lineup. I think probably not the first I would go to, but I think he's that good of a captain play. All right, first lineup we get here, and you can see the EVs are higher now. Now this is the EV based changes that I've made. So it's with different inputs, but these are what the EVs look like now. Zay Flowers at captain with Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Pretty interesting to see both double Lions running back in this one. Justice Hill, Lamar Jackson, and Mark Andrews. Second line, we've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Dave Montgomery, Derrick Henry, the only Ravens player, Isaac Tesla, Jared Goff, and Sam Laporta. These ones leave more salary on the table. These are leaving second lineup there leaves $2,000 on the table. Projected for less than one dupe on average. Third lineup, we've got Amon-Ra, Henry, Tesla, Gibbs, Goff, Raymond. I'm liking these. These are looking like pretty strong lineups here. Let's take a look at the player exposures. We've got 45% Lamar at flex, 13.5% at captain. Looks good to me. Zay Flowers getting to a ton of Zay at captain, 28% Zay captain, 35% in the flex. Amon-Ra, 40 at flex, 17% at captain. Didn't actually move down my Goff ownership much here. Still at 51% and 6%. Gibbs at 45% and 7%. Henry moved up a little bit, 32.5%. Still not getting to much at captain. Maybe I need to. I think I actually lowered his captain ownership projection. Still did not get that much more. Interesting. Laporta, man, I'm still not getting to as much as I think I would like to. I think I need to move down his ownership even more, maybe, or maybe I need to give him a little bit more target share or something. I don't know, but I'd like to get to a little bit more there. Montgomery, good amount. Still not getting to that much Andrews. I might want to do a little bit more there. Still not getting to much Bateman. Interesting. I think this is just a matter of I'm seeing a lot of players where I'm like, I would like to get more of that player and not that many that I think I need to get less of that player. And I think it's just a matter of there are so many good plays on this slate that it's a little bit tough to play everybody you want to. But so I'm gonna have to think about how I can get away from some of the players that I am comfortable getting away from. Because I love that I'm getting this much. Raymond, that looks great. Kolar looks great. So I need to find the spots that I can sacrifice. I wouldn't mind sacrificing, I guess, a little bit of Hopkins since you need to sacrifice somewhere. So I think that is one that I'm just going to have to accept, getting a little bit less Hopkins. And then Goff, I think, is the other one that I would be okay getting to less of Goff. It's tough because it's tough to get away from the quarterback without getting away from the pass catchers also, I guess. But maybe that's okay because I'm already getting to so much of Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would like to get to more of Laporta. Like the only lever that I can think of that you can pull there is reduce their rushing market share, which I've already reduced his to 0. But I'll think about that. Okay. Let's see. I guess I could move up his ownership. That's what I could do if I want to get to a little bit less Goff. I'm going to do that because I want to get to a little bit less Goff. So I'm going to move his flex ownership up to 52%, captain ownership up to 9%. So I'll start there. Maybe I should actually, before I do anything, I don't have any lineups in right now, so I'm just going to get these lineups downloaded. Okay. And actually, I'm just going to put them in before I forget because I'm pretty sleep deprived, a little bit loopy. Don't want to forget to get lineups in. All right. And then I'll go back and adjust. There we go. We got some lineups in. Okay. Now I'm going to adjust again. So again, I'm okay getting to a little bit less of Goff. Several players I'd like to get a little bit more of, including Andrews and Laporta. So I'm going to move up Laporta's. I'm going to move down Laporta flex ownership even a little bit more. I think I'm happy with my Tesla and Raymond. I want to get to more JMO at captain. So I moved down his captain projected ownership to 2% just to artificially try to get more. I'm also going to move down Henry a little bit more. And I was talking about this with Adam earlier. I probably do too much here, to be honest. Like I'm trying to use a sim product like it's an optimizer, but it's been successful so far. So I don't know. Like on the one hand, I feel like I'm giving up a lot of the power of the optimizer by changing things in ways that it's like I don't even necessarily believe that this is going to be how it should be, but I just want to get to the players that I want to get to. It'll still do a lot for me in terms of correlation and stuff, and then the optimizer, the portfolio tool. But admittedly, in making as many changes as I make, I probably do sacrifice some of the power of the Sims tool. Let's see. Gonna move Hill down a little bit more. Bateman, just not getting too much Bateman. So I moved him down to 29%. I'm going to move Andrews down further. I don't think anybody's excited to play Andrews, so I think he's actually going to come in. I think that's actually accurate that he's going to get lower ownership than he's being projected for. But then where does more of that ownership go? Probably some of it to Flowers, some to Lamar. More to Goff. All right, let's do that. All right. All right, I'm going to try it like this. All right. I agree. Bateman is criminally mispriced. So now it's just a matter of like, is he going to get the ownership in accordance with that take, which I think he might. but kind of hard to tell. I think a lot of the players on the Ravens like have underperformed so far. So like Andrews hasn't done anything, Bateman hasn't done anything. Flowers is the only one who's done anything. So I wouldn't be surprised to see all of them come in a little bit under owned, but sort of hard to predict because it's a showdown slate. Sometimes hard to predict the ownership here. Pete, that's a good instinct. He says, whenever anyone on either offense gets hurt, my first instinct is to fire up a flash draft. Yeah, definitely a good instinct. Like some people are not watching the game. They're not going to know. I've definitely been in flash drafts where it's like, all right, 10% of the field just played this player who's not going to be playing. Happens all the time. Marquee, Mike, can you not play Laporta tonight, please? Thanks. Pete, same thing. Please do not play Laporta tonight. Brandon says, Rasheen Ali, take me home. I didn't see any kind of usage for Rasheen Ali. Let me see if I did. Has he done more than I'm realizing? He's played one snap through 2 games. So it could work out in like a blowout, I guess, or an injury or something. Tez Walker, he's just not part of the game plan. Like he's played 15 or run 15% of the routes. I think he's going to be over owned because of the 2 touchdowns. But yeah, he could play a little bit more. Who knows? All right, diversifying payouts. Almost done here. Top lineup. And this I talked about this being something I like. Lamar with DeAndre Hopkins and Justice Hill and Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers. So we've got Lamar at captain, full onslaught, probably going to go under own there. And then we've got Jahmyr Gibbs, the bring back from the Lions. That one looks great. Second lineup, Amon-Ra, David Montgomery, Derrick Henry, Isaac Tesla, Jared Goff, Sam Laporta. Love it. Third lineup, Zay Flowers, Amon-Ra, David Montgomery, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman. Love it. These are looking good. So fifth one, the first Goff captain lineups, and it is an onslaught with Amon-Ra, Tesla, JMO, and Laporta. Zay Flowers, the only bring back in that one. These look fantastic. I'm loving the way these lineups are coming out. Player exposures. At quarterback, I brought down the Goff a little bit. Glad to see that worked out. Still getting to 47% Lamar, 15% at captain, 43% Goff, 4% at captain. Looks better. At running back, we've got 48.5% Gibbs. Not getting to a ton of Gibbs at captain. Up to 28.8% Henry, 7.3% at captain. So a little bit closer to where I would like to be. We're at 51% Montgomery, 6.5% at captain. So go Montgomery. Up to 33.6% Hill and 0.6% at captain. Wide receiver, we're at 35.8% Flowers, 23.7% at captain. Amon-Ra 35 and 20, Bateman 25 and 1. So we brought that up a little bit. Man, I'm not getting into much JMO. That's the one that I really don't like. This 9.6% flex, 3% at captain. I might need to move his rates up a little bit to get more. I'm getting a 20% Tesla, 10% Hopkins, 10% Raymond. In general, happy with those numbers. 1.9% Tylan Wallace. I might want a little bit more there also. So JMO and Wallace, the two that stand out that I might want a little bit more. At tight end, I'm up to about 40% Laporta with 10% of that at captain. That looks closer to where I'd like to be. Andrews 29 and 4, Kolar 7%. I might want to get to more Kolar. So the tight ends, all right. Kickers, we're getting to 12% Loop, 17.5% Bates. So I want to prioritize them, but it's a little bit tougher to do. I'm mostly okay with that. Not getting too much of the defenses. All right, so I'm gonna download these lineups because I like these better than the last set, and then I'll try to do one more. We'll see if we have time. It's been going a little bit quicker tonight, though. So happy to see that. Hang on, I gotta get rid of my old spreadsheet. Download this one. I'm going to put this in. All right, now I'm going to make some changes. So again, I want to get to more of JMO, more of Tylan Wallace, mostly okay with the others. And then tight end, wanted to get to more of, I think, Kolar, maybe Andrews Laporta. Just kind of minor tweaks. But the big one is I want more of JMO. I'm going to move up Goff's ownership even a little bit more because I'm still getting to more than I think I need. Going to move JMO's ownership down a little bit more. I want to do it incrementally. See, that might be too much, but we'll see. All right. Could get more of the kickers by moving down their ownership too, I suppose. All right. Going to move down Kolar's ownership a little bit more, I think. Maybe I don't want to move it too much or I'm going to get just a boatload. I'll try just 6. See if that sticks. Anders going to move down slightly. Hopkins I'll move up slightly. And then, yeah, I think I'm mostly okay with these. All right, let's do that. All right, I'm going to try it. See if we have time. Not giving myself a ton of time here. Got 3 minutes. Yeah, Emwald, this is every NFL game. Really excited. Can't wait to be wildly disappointed. Feel that. Yeah, please do like the video if you haven't done so. Always helpful. Tomorrow I'm going to be here with Methology in the afternoon. We're going to have a special guest. Chris G is going to join us if I read the messages correctly. So that'll be fun. Another Dog Bowl qualifier from last year. Always a good time on that show. So you can join us for that tomorrow afternoon, and then not going to be back on this channel most likely until Thursday. On Thursday, going to be doing, of course, the morning, mid afternoon, early afternoon show with Adam Share, and then be back, of course, for Thursday Night Football in the evening as well. Yeah, Lou Dog. What's up, Lou Dog? All right. I would also love to see, if you do win, by the way, a reminder, please do send me the screenshot. Even if you don't want the hat, you can, even if you don't win $1,000, even if you don't qualify for that, always love to see the winning screenshots. We got some, of course, last night. That was fun to get some of those. But if you want to get the hat, use the Flannelverse avatar, win $1,000 or more in a DFS or draft game. Give a social media shout out to myself or Mathology13 or Flannelversity on social media. Those would be our Twitter usernames, and then send me your mailing address and I will send you a hat. Pretty easy to get. Yeah, the moderators got some hats. I like them. I think they look nice. Glad people are liking them, because I am pretty biased. All right, we're diversifying payout. We might actually get this in without really time to review them, so that's scary, but I'll take just a glance at what they look like, what the exposures look like, and if they look good, I'll play them. right. Shady advice, just doing the numbers, crunching the numbers for me right now. All right, there we go. I'm going to download these lineups. I think I'm just going to put them in without looking. I think I'm going to trust them. Hopefully I didn't make any like huge glaring errors in that last run. All right, let's see. Let's see if I made any huge glaring errors. Getting to still a lot of Lamar, Zay, Amon-Ra, looking good. We're a lot less Goff after those changes. Fair amount of, a little bit more Henry, Gibbs, Laporta, good, a lot of Laporta captain at least. Still a lot of Montgomery, Mark Andrews, Bateman, Justice Hill, 36%, loving that. It looks like I got a pretty good number here. Ooh, I didn't move up my Tylan Wallace. I forgot to move up my Tylan Wallace exposure. So that one I kind of regret. Up to 20% bait, so I did increase that a little bit. In general, happy here, but if Tylan Wallace goes off, then I will be kicking myself for not remembering to change his numbers at all. All right, that was fun. Appreciate you all. Thanks for hanging out with me during this. Hey, went okay last night. Could work out just fine here. Appreciate all of you. Good luck tonight. Please like the video, subscribe if you haven't. See you at the top as well, and see you in the Discord. Remember to join the Flanovers Discord if you are interested. It is free. Link in the description of this video. All right. Thanks, guys. See you later.